Today I'll be teaching you how to wire in the carrot top tuning engine harness with the fuse box tuck and the switch panel. This video is mainly just aiming towards street cars, so teaching you how to wire in the standalone harness while making it work with headlights, taillights, blinkers, all that stuff. That way you can use this really high-end harness and still use it on the street so you don't get your car impounded. First thing I'm going to do is show you how to get power to the fuse box tuck. I would highly recommend having a battery cutoff, just because these cars are, I wouldn't really say they're the safest cars out there. You know, they were one of the most easily stolen cars back in their day. So I would highly recommend having one of these just as a safety feature. You do need these on the strip for some places, just to have an outer way of shutting off your car. And then you also just gives you that peace of mind, just in case if anybody else tries to steal your car, you know, they'll need this. They can't just jump in it and turn it on and go. So what you want to do, for me, I have my battery located in the trunk. For you guys it may be different, but either way, wherever your battery is located, you're going to want to have your power wire ran down through here and over to your fuse box. So this is my power wire right here, right? This little post right here is supplied by Carrot Top Tuning. I'm not sure if they still supply it, but they did when I bought the harness. This wire goes into the supplied battery post. Battery post kind of acts as a T-terminal. So like I said, this wire comes from your battery power, and then it goes into this post, and then this wire goes straight from this post into your starter. And then you also want to take your wire from your fuse box tuck and hook that up the same way. So you got power from the battery, then you got the fuse box tuck right here, and then this goes to your starter. So I guess we'll start off with a how-to on the switches and plugs. So for the dash, I'm going to mention this first because this is a optional thing. They don't send plug and play for this. This is, like I said, it's optional. This whole harness here was custom made. It's not rocket science to make it. I mean, they send you these connectors right here and the pins, so all you have to do is get the proper colored wires, or don't get the proper color. I mean, I would recommend it because it makes things easier, but all you have to do is pin those things, stuff the pins in, and make sure they're in the right place so you don't fry stuff. And long story short, this dash connector is optional, so it wasn't intended to be used right off the gate. But if you're going to be running a EK Civic like I am, or an EG, and you want to make this thing a street car, so you have headlights, taillights, working windows, all that stuff, you're going to need that. So what you're going to want to do is, like I said, get this all pinned out, and then you're going to want to take those. I'll have a thing linked in the description on the pinouts for the EK dash cluster. It'll also show Integra and one other. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but like I said, I'll have that linked in the description. So you got to get this set up, pin those based off of what Carrot Top Tuning sends you for a diagram, which, like I said, this is very easy to do. It sounds overcomplicated, but I have only done wiring a couple times in my life, and I'm not that great at it. So now that you have the Denso connector pinned the way that Carrot Top Tuning intends it, which, like I said, you just have to send them your order number, and then they'll send you the diagram so you know how this is supposed to be ran. So you send these wires in, and you probably won't end up using all of them. You probably end up using a couple of them. At least I did. So this is an EK dash cluster. You're only going to need this plug and this plug. I wouldn't recommend doing this when it's plugged into your cluster. I'd highly recommend unplugging it. But for example, you literally just see, these are the old ones. You just cut the wire, and then you run the wire from the dash connector. What I did was I just heat shrinked it. I twisted them together and heat shrinked. It's a simple way of doing it. You don't got to solder it because it adds impedance and all that crap. So just cut the wire, leave yourself a little bit of room, twist them together, heat shrink it. Same one for this one. You check the thing that I'm going to be linking in the description for the pinout so you know what wire does what. You heat shrink them, and then now you'll have a working dash cluster. So you'll have miles an hour, you'll have coolant temp, you'll have RPM, all that fun stuff. And like I said, this looks really complicated, but it isn't. It's like, for me to get mine working properly, it was 3 wires on this one and 3 wires on this one. Pretty simple. Like I said, you don't have to have matching colors when you pin it, but That's what my other sponsor did because it made things simple for me. All right, so let's jump on to fuel pump wiring. So again, Carrot Top Tuning will send you this stuff once you ask for it. It makes it extremely easy. They literally tell you what plug does what and how to pin what for what and what does everything. So this plug right here is a 4-pin, but it does fuel, and it also does the radiator fan. So what you're gonna want to do is get your fuel pump wiring, right? Take the 2 wires from your fuel pump, which there only are 2. Got to figure out which one's positive and which one's negative, which in our case, yellow is positive, black is negative. And you're gonna want to take those. For me, it's white. White's negative for me. So what was done is that the white was grounded out over here. Just drilled a hole, put a bolt through it. This is not solidified, but it works. It just kind of holds it there for a ground. Then you're gonna want to take your positive wire, run that all the way down here, and then you're gonna want to run your positive into the connector. And then you see the other wire coming out of the connector here. This one comes out of the connector and it goes into your radiator fan. So like I said, this is for your fuel pump and fan switch. If you don't fully understand what I mean, I'll simplify it and basically show you where the pinout goes. So blue is for the fan switch and red is for your fuel pump. Both of these are positive wires. You don't got to worry about these other 2. Like I said, just worry about 1 and 2, 1 and 2. So fuel pump, radiator fan, and then you just got to worry about grounding the fuel pump and then grounding the radiator fan. Also, do not get discouraged. This setup, like I said, it looks overcomplicated, but as long as you're willing to learn, it's extremely simple. They send you this stuff. They send you the pins. All you have to do is put the wire. Get out of here. Go. So all you have to do is put the wire in there, grip it down, bend the tabs over, and then put them in the hole. That's it. You guys are good at that, right? So all you gotta do is take these, pin them. These are like these are the holders essentially. So when you're done, you stuff these in and it kind of keeps them in place. So like I said, this is where you put it in at, right? You put it in this way. This is the way the pins go in. Pins go in like this, okay? And you just put the wire in there, and then you put the pins in the hole. I promise you guys, it's not as hard as it looks, all right? You just got to be willing to learn how to do it. Okay, so in a moment here, we will move on to the section on how to get your dash harness power. So you're going to want to leave your OEM chassis harness in your car still. If you know what I mean, I'm talking about this long, stupid, loomed up, ugly wire that goes across there, over to your back, all that stuff. You're going to want to leave all of that in if you're going to want to run your OEM stuff. So we'll go to that in 1 second here, but like I said, you're just going to want to make sure everything works with your harness. So first things first, you're going to want to test your fan switches and all that. First thing you should really do is make sure you go over everything, make sure everything's hooked up right, and then you can get power. So your ECU should kick on, everything should be able to work, right? And then you can start testing things separately, like your fan. So your fan works. Turn on fuel. And make sure you have gas in your car when you're doing this. If you run your fuel pump dry, you'll destroy it. So as you can tell, fuel pump's working. I don't have any auxiliaries hooked up. I have nothing to use for that. I may later down the road for Boost by Gear by Honda, some stuff like that. But that isn't something you're going to have to worry about unless you have that in your build. But once you test your fan and your fuel to make sure that works, give your starter a quick flick, make sure that works. So your starter works. Now you can turn all this off because you know everything on here is good to go. Now you can move on to your chassis portion to make sure your windows work, sunroof work, blinkers work, headlights work, all of that stuff. Something I did forget to mention, you don't need the auxiliaries for Boost by Gear or any of that. This stuff is actually meant for, get back here, the harness comes with the quote-unquote extra wires, right? This can be used for boost by gear and stuff like that. The auxiliary switches are actually intended to be used for things like your wideband sensor, your boost sensor, stuff like that, which I can probably make a video on a later date about because I haven't quite gotten this properly wired in yet. Alright, so now we're moving on to the chassis harness. This is extremely easy. Don't be worried about it at all. It's extremely simple. All you need to do is make sure you have your OEM chassis harness in the car still, grounded. Everything's OEM when it comes to that. So you're going to want to run a wire from your battery's positive terminal all the way to your fuse box. Make sure your fuse box is plugged in the back, obviously. And then you're going to want to have your power wire come straight into the first connector. Not the first connector on the outside, the first connector on the inside. The one on the outside is a charge harness for your alternator. You don't need that. So you just need to have positive wire come to your positive wire on your battery, and now your chassis harness should have power. So with that being said, if you have everything wired into your gauge cluster correctly and everything done the way that I explained, everything should work fine. You should be able to turn your key on, and that should give your gauge cluster power and your chassis power. Without this on, you will have no power to the chassis. The second you turn it on, then you'll have chassis power, just like OEM. So if everything works, you should have working windows, should have working taillights, you should have a working sunroof, your windshield wiper blades should work. I don't have mine hooked up, obviously, but everything OEM should work. And then you can also turn on your lights, make sure that your taillights work. And then headlights will work, I'll tell you that right now. Alright, so again, I can't stress this enough. I'm just trying to force it on you guys. Please get a battery cutoff switch. I mean, you guys, this could be the difference between your car getting stolen and parted out and somewhere in a chop shop and your car sitting there and you getting to go home at the end of the night. So, and it's super, extremely simple. The way I did it was the opposite of simple because I wanted to have a third feature because I'm paranoid about this car. But like I said, all you gotta do is cut your ground wire in half, and then one side of your ground wire goes into the terminal, and then the other side goes on the other side, right? So your car will not have power. See the keys in my hand right now, it's not hooked up. Your car won't have any kind of power at all. Somebody could jump in it, they could have your key, would not matter. They won't have any power for anything. But when you put the key in, it gives your car power. And to be honest with you, it kind of looks cool. So that's another thing. But yeah, you hook that up. Oh, shit. But yeah, once you hook that up, everything works fine. You get your power and you're good to go on your way. So, I mean, you don't have to do that, but I highly recommend it. I suppose that's it. Thanks to Cutoff Tuning for reaching out to me. And then, again, thanks to Syndicate Performance for doing some of the wiring on the car, making it look good, and helping source me a lot of parts for this build. I'll be making more videos on this car later this summer. My main goal is to get this thing completely ready to go. It probably won't be really driven until 2026, later in the summer, just because of legal reasons. But other than that, like I said, I hope you guys found this video useful. Drop a follow, and I'll see you guys next time.